Okay, this is gonna sound insane, and believe me, I still have trouble wrapping my head around it. But it happened. I swear on my mother's grave, every word of this is true. I work as a sanitation worker in the Bronx. Been doing it for almost 15 years. It's not glamorous, but it's a steady paycheck and it pays the bills. My route covers a good chunk of Pelham Parkway, mostly the residential areas near Bronx Park. Nothing exciting ever happens, usually. Just the same overflowing bins, the same discarded furniture, the same pigeons. Pelham Parkway is infested with pigeons. They're everywhere. Perched on every ledge, strutting across the sidewalks, cooing their annoying little heads off. You get used to it, I guess. I certainly did. I barely even noticed them anymore. Then I met Angelo. Angelo was a character. He was an old Italian guy, probably in his late 70s, with a shock of white hair and a permanent squint. He always wore the same outfit, a stained brown fedora, a patched-up tweed jacket, and these ancient, leather work boots. He'd be out every morning, right around the time I started my route, standing in front of this dilapidated apartment building on Leidig Avenue. He wasn't doing anything illegal, just standing there, hands clasped behind his back, staring up at the sky. He looked like he was waiting for something. For weeks, I just ignored him. Figured he was just another eccentric New Yorker. Then one morning, he stopped me. "Excuse me, young man," he said, his voice raspy like sandpaper. "You work for the city, yes?" I nodded, grabbing my trash picker. "That's right. You see the birds?" he asked, gesturing vaguely upwards with his chin. I looked up. Pigeons. Hundreds of them. Circling above the building, landing on the fire escapes, pecking at the roof. "Yeah, I see them. What about it?" "They are lost," he said, his eyes fixed on the swirling mass of feathers. "They need guidance." I sighed. "Look, pal, I'm just trying to do my job here. I don't have time to play Dr. Dolittle with a bunch of pigeons." He didn't seem offended. He just smiled, a knowing, almost unsettling smile. "You think they are just birds, eh? You are wrong. They are more." He then reached into his pocket and pulled out a handful of seeds. He tossed them into the air, and instantly, the pigeons descended, a feathered avalanche. They swarmed around him, pecking at his feet, landing on his shoulders. He was completely covered in birds. I was speechless. I'd never seen anything like it. "My name is Angelo," he said, his voice muffled by the pigeons. "I am their friend." Over the next few weeks, I started talking to Angelo. I learned that he'd lived in that building his whole life. He'd been feeding the pigeons since he was a kid. He claimed he could understand them, that they told him things. I thought he was nuts, of course. But there was something about him, something compelling. He told me stories about the pigeons. About how they were descended from carrier pigeons, used to deliver messages during World War II. About how they had their own secret language, their own intricate social structure. About how they were more intelligent than people gave them credit for. He even claimed that the pigeons controlled the city. I laughed. Controlled the city? Come on, Angelo. He just smiled. "You will see, young man. You will see." One day, Angelo didn't show up. I figured he was just sick or something. Old guys get sick, right? But he wasn't there the next day, or the day after that. I started to worry. I finally went to the apartment building and asked the super about him. The super, a grumpy guy named Sal, just shrugged. "Angelo? Yeah, he died. Heart attack. Found him in his apartment a few days ago." Sad, really. He was a good guy, if a little weird. I felt a pang of sadness. I hadn't known Angelo that well, but I'd grown fond of him. He was a harmless old eccentric, a little bit of color in my otherwise monotonous routine. I went back to my route, feeling a little down. As I was emptying a bin near the park, I noticed something strange. The pigeons. They were all there. Hundreds, maybe thousands of them, perched on the trees, the benches, the statues. They were all facing the same direction, towards Angelo's building. And they were all silent. It was eerie. Like they were mourning. Then, something even stranger happened. One of the pigeons, a large, gray one with a distinctive white patch on its chest, flew down and landed on my shoulder. It looked me right in the eye. I swear to God, it did. Then it cooed. Not a normal coo, but a long, drawn-out, almost mournful coo. And then, it did something that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. It nudged my cheek with its beak. It was like it was saying goodbye. Over the next few days, things started to get weird. Really weird. First, I started noticing that the pigeons were following me. Not all the time, but often. They'd be perched on the rooftops as I drove by, watching me. They'd be sitting on the sidewalks as I walked my route, just staring. Then, I started hearing things. Whispers. Faint, almost imperceptible cooing sounds. I thought I was going crazy. One day, I was eating lunch in the park when a group of teenagers started messing with the pigeons. They were throwing rocks at them, trying to scare them. I yelled at them to stop. Hey, leave them alone. They just laughed. What's it to you, old man? I was about to go over there and give them a piece of my mind when something incredible happened. The pigeons. They swarmed. Hundreds of them descended on the teenagers, pecking at their heads, their faces, their hands. The teenagers screamed and ran away, flailing their arms, trying to get the birds off them. I stood there, stunned. I'd never seen anything like it. After that, things escalated quickly. Traffic lights started malfunctioning. Cars started stalling. Construction projects were delayed. There were power outages, water main breaks, even a small fire in a local deli. It was chaos, and the pigeons were everywhere. Watching, waiting. Then, I realized something. All the chaos was happening in the areas where Angelo used to feed the pigeons. The areas where he claimed they controlled the city. I started to investigate. I talked to people who lived in the neighborhood. I read articles in the local newspapers. I even did some research online. And what I found was terrifying. Angelo wasn't just some harmless old eccentric. He was something else. Something more. He was the Pigeon King. He'd been training those pigeons for years, teaching them to do his bidding. He'd somehow managed to manipulate them, to control them. And now that he was gone, they were acting out, wreaking havoc on the city he loved. Or, perhaps, causing havoc on the city that killed him through his ailing heart. I knew I had to do something. I had to stop them. But how? I was just a sanitation worker. What could I possibly do against an army of pigeons? Then, I remembered something Angelo had told me. They are smart, young man, he'd said. But they are also predictable. They follow patterns. They respond to loyalty. Loyalty. That's it. I went to Angelo's apartment. I talked to Sal, the super, and convinced him to let me in. The place was a mess. Piles of old newspapers, empty birdseed bags, dusty furniture. But in the middle of it all, there was a table. And on the table, there was a notebook. I opened the notebook. It was filled with Angelo's handwriting. It was a journal, of sorts. It detailed his life with the pigeons, his methods of training them, his theories about their intelligence. And then, I found it. A passage that described how he controlled the pigeons. It wasn't through food or punishment. It was through love. He'd built a relationship with them, a bond of trust and respect. He'd treated them like family. And they, in turn, had been loyal to him. I realized what I had to do. I had to become the Pigeon King. It sounded insane, I know. But I didn't see any other option. I started spending time in the park, feeding the pigeons. I talked to them, even though I knew they couldn't understand me. I cleaned up their messes, I protected them from harm. And slowly, gradually, they started to trust me. The white-patched pigeon, the one that had nudged my cheek, started to follow me everywhere. It would land on my shoulder, perch on my head, even ride along in my garbage truck. I named him Angelo, after the old man. With Angelo by my side, I started to gain control. I learned to anticipate the pigeons' movements, to understand their needs. I started to communicate with them, not through words, but through gestures, through tones of voice, through sheer force of will. And slowly, the chaos started to subside. The traffic lights started working again. The cars stopped stalling. The construction projects were completed. The power outages ceased. The pigeons were still there, watching. But now, they were watching me. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if I can truly control the pigeons, or if I'm just deluding myself. But I do know this. I'm no longer just a sanitation worker. I'm something more. I'm the Pigeon King of Pelham Parkway. And I'm making sure no teenagers are throwing rocks at my flock, again.